Rain rattled the tin roof like 1,000 impatient fingers, and the padlock on the pantry door glinted in the dull kitchen light, a small, stubborn moon over everything they did not have. Nia stood barefoot on the cracked linoleum, one arm around her daughter to steady her, the other curled around a wooden spoon as if it were a shield. 6 months, and the lock had never moved. 6 months, and the meter had clicked the lights off so often that both of them had learned to breathe in the dark. 6 months, and the hollow in their bellies had a calendar of its own. Maya swayed. "Mama, I'm dizzy." Nia guided her to the chair near the window that faced a backyard their landlord no longer bothered to mow. The girl's knees stuck out like knobby door hinges beneath shorts that had seen 2 summers. She was 7 and should have been all laughter. But the last 6 months had taught her silence. The way children learn a new language by being dropped in a city where no one speaks theirs. Nia bent to the cupboard under the sink and took out 2 potatoes she'd hidden there behind the detergent. She had bartered a pair of earrings to a neighbor for those potatoes, explaining with a smile that she never wore gold anyway, that she liked the look of plain hoops. She did not say she had kept the earrings only because her mother had given them to her when she married Derek Johnson in a white dress she'd sewn herself in a veil pinned with hope. She peeled the potatoes with a paring knife that had lost half its handle. She cut them small to trick the eye. She set them to boil in a dented pot with a scrap of onion, and the steam curled up into the ceiling like a prayer. If smell could be a lullaby, this was it, the smell of a memory that wasn't there. Footsteps thudded on the porch. Nia's hand paused over the pot. Derek's key turned the lock with a tidy, practiced click. He came in from the rain in a navy suit too sharp for a man who said times were hard. Water jeweled on his shoulders. He set down a sleek briefcase that still smelled like new leather. "What's that?" he asked without looking at her. His voice was cool enough to put frost on glass. "Potatoes." Maya felt lightheaded. His smile cut, but not kindly. "I told you we're on a plan. You don't break the plan." He nodded toward the pantry lock. "The plan keeps us disciplined." He had other words for it when friends called or church people came by. Stewardship. Reset. Household fast. He'd taken to saying, "I'm the head. I carry the weight." Nia had learned that a certain kind of man will hold a good word up like a stained glass window, not to pray through but to keep the room dim enough that nobody can see him. Maya lifted her head and tried to smile. "Hi, Daddy." Derek looked at her for a heartbeat and, as if a tear might tip, looked away. "School called again," he said to Nia. "She's late too often. That reflects on me. On us." "We overslept," Nia said. "The alarm didn't." "The phone is off because you used too much data," he said, and the rain found a new tempo on the roof, iron against iron. "I told you we're adjusting. Temporary." 6 months of temporary had settled into the bones of the house the way damp does. In that time, Derek had dictated portion sizes, shut off the Wi-Fi, unplugged the fridge at night, vampire energy, he had read somewhere, sold the car and hung a chore chart like a proud coach of a failing team. He kissed Nia's forehead, sometimes, and said, "You'll see. Sacrifice brings blessing." He kissed Maya's hair and said, "Be strong for Daddy." Outside, a thunderclap rolled over the neighborhood, and the kitchen window vibrated in its frame. Somewhere down the road, a child laughed at the storm. The laugh was high and bright and quick, like a bird escaping. Nia turned the heat off and mashed the potatoes with milk made thin with water. She scraped the sides of the pot to gather every last bit. She folded in a roasted pepper she had chopped fine, a pepper she had traded a church lady for by offering to retwist her hair. "The Lord moves in mysterious ways," that lady had said, "sometimes in the produce aisle." They ate with spoons. Maya closed her eyes and hummed with the first bite, a sound that was as close to joy as any in the house had been for weeks. Derek watched them. He did not eat. He had taken to fasting on the days he said were covenants. "I'm proving myself," he told Nia. "God sees." Nia saw other things, how he still kept his gym membership, how his cologne never ran out, how a new watch flashed a cold little galaxy on his wrist. "Client gift," he'd said, eyes steady. The day before, when she'd been taking out the trash, she had glimpsed an envelope in the bin addressed to him at a P.O. box she'd never seen. She had reached, heart in her throat. But footsteps on the stair had sent her scurrying back inside, empty-handed, breath like a trapped moth. "Finish, May," Nia whispered now, "and lie down a while." Maya's spoon scraped the bottom of her bowl. "Can we have the rest tomorrow?" "If there's rest left," Derek said, the smile again, thin as paper. When Maya had curled on the couch under a patchwork quilt, Derek reached up to the pantry door jamb, slid a key from beneath the frame, and flicked the padlock open. He took a can of tuna and a bottle of multivitamins and relocked the door with a click that seemed to echo. "For me," he said, and the word was a door shutting. Nia felt something behind her ribs shift, like a fish testing the net. "Derek," she said softly. "School called, yes, I'll fix it. But we need to stop whining," he said. "We need obedience." He picked up his briefcase and walked down the hallway to the bedroom. The lock on that door did not make a sound she could bear today. Wind banged the porch swing against the railing. A neighbor's radio crackled into life. Nia washed the dishes with slow, careful movements. She had learned not to slam. She had also learned not to cry where Maya could see. Tears had a taste that stayed in a child's mouth longer than you wanted. When she finished, she found a rag and wiped the table the way her mother had taught her, corners to center. She cleaned as if order could summon hope like a shy cat. On the windowsill sat a small carved wooden figure her grandmother had given her when she was a girl. A woman with her head wrapped and her arms out, eyes carved kind. "Keep her where you cook," Grandma had said. "A woman's courage rises with steam." Grandma had come to Chicago at 19, but her voice had never lost the rhythm of the village she'd left. And sometimes in that rhythm were old stories. Women who outwitted famine with wisdom, girls who followed a talking drum, a cruel husband who met a river he could not cross. A slow knock at the front door startled Nia. Not the knock of a neighbor, not the rat-a-tat of someone selling something, not the police's heavy beat. A careful knock, like someone carrying news that might break in their hands if they were not gentle. Thunder rolled again. Rain whispered in the gutters. Derek called from the bedroom, belt buckle clinking as he undressed. "Don't open the door to strangers." The knock came again, patient. Nia went to the door, peered through the peephole. On the porch stood an older woman with a yellow umbrella and a man in a dark coat, face dotted with rain. The woman's umbrella dripped on her shoes, but she stood straight. Her hair was silver, braided close to her scalp in neat cornrows that ended behind her ears in coils. In her left hand, she held a leather folder. In her right, a foil-wrapped parcel, edges crimped like a pie. Something about her made Nia think of a schoolteacher who had never raised her voice, and yet no one dared to whisper when she turned her back to the board. "Who is it?" Derek again, sharper. Nia opened the door a cautious crack, then wider before reason could catch her. The woman's eyes were kind without being soft. The man in the coat had the stance of a bodyguard or a minister who likes order, or both. "Mrs. R. Johnson?" the woman asked in a voice warm as the pie. "Nia." The way she said Nia sounded like she'd known the name longer than the city had known the house. "Yes. I'm Auntie Ifeoma," the woman said. "You don't know me yet, but your grandmother asked me to find you. May we come in out of the rain? I brought you hot meat pie. Pepper, too. It's fresh. Your grandma said you're mild on pepper, but today you might need it." Nia's throat tightened. "My grandmother passed 6 months ago," she said. She had not been able to travel for the funeral. Tickets had been too much right now, Derek had said, and he had turned back to his tablet with a sermon playing so loud the living room had felt like a sanctuary and a jail at once. "I know," Auntie Afeoma said. "I was there. I promised her." She nodded toward the man. "This is Mr. Rowland. He is an attorney." Behind Nia, the bedroom door opened. Derek filled the hallway like a curtain pulled across a stage. If he was surprised, he folded it quick and put it away. "We don't entertain unscheduled visits," he said. "We're not interested in donations either." "Good afternoon, sir," Mr. Rowland said. His voice had a way of staying calm that made loud things around it feel embarrassed. He held up an envelope sealed with bright blue wax stamped with a symbol, the outline of a river and the letter A. "We've been trying to reach your wife," he said. "We have urgent estate documents for her." Nia felt her heart thump against the ribs in a rhythm she had heard once when she had stood near a talking drum at a festival. Low, certain, old. "Estate?" she asked. "It's a scam," Derek said briskly. "We get those." "I don't waste leftover grace and weather on scams," Auntie Ifeoma said, and although she was small, her words filled the doorway. "Your wife's grandmother left instructions with a trust established years ago. A very real one. We have been searching since December. The trust reached my network when it hit the diaspora list for Chicago, Houston, Atlanta, D.C. It carries a clause that requires delivery in person." She raised the folder slightly. "I have walked in rain for less." Derek's smile practiced itself again. "This is not a good time." "When is hunger a good time?" she asked. Silence took a chair at the table. Nia looked from one face to another. Maya stirred on the couch and coughed a dry little cough that made Nia's teeth ache. "You said urgent," she said to Mr. Rowland. "Why?" "There is a deadline, Mom," he said. "A 30-year stipulation. Today, by midnight." Thunder spoke again, distant as a warning you try not to hear. Derek took a step forward. "Thank you for your concern, but anything involving my wife's family comes through me. I handle business here." Mr. Rowland looked at Nia. Only at Nia. "Legally," he said, "only the beneficiary can receive or authorize. This is not personal. It's the law." Something in Nia straightened that had been bent almost to breaking. "Come in," she said, and before a second thought could put a hand on her elbow, she opened the door wider and stepped back. Auntie Ifeoma stepped inside and passed her the warm parcel. "For your child," she said softly. The smell of flaky pastry and meat and pepper rose like a feast song after a long fast. Derek's eyes flashed. "We don't need that," he said. "I do," Maya whispered from the couch, sitting up fast like a cork popping. Her eyes were wide, hopeful and scared of their own hope. "Go ahead, baby," Nia said, and Maya's small hands reached for the pie like a prayer that finally got an answer. She took a bite, then another, and tears ran down her face with the heat, and she laughed in the same breath, and the sound was a bird again, bigger this time. Auntie Ifeoma set the leather folder on the table and opened it. Mr. Rowland broke the blue wax with a neat tool and took out a letter covered in careful handwriting, inked in strokes that looked like a woman who did not waste words or paper. "Nia," he read, because his voice was the most steady in the room, and because sometimes the law is a spell you need someone else to say for you. "If this reaches you, it means I have already crossed the river. If this reaches you late, it is because the world is big and names change and storms delay boats. Do not be afraid of storms. They bring water to the fields." Nia closed her eyes. Her grandmother's proverbs had always sounded like the opening lines to old songs. "I set aside," Mr. Rowland continued, "a blessing from the harvest your great-grandfather began. Land here grew oil. I did not speak of it to many because wealth invites long hands. I asked a lawyer I trust to hold it for my granddaughter until the day she turns 30. On that day, it becomes hers without condition. I wrote this clause so that if men around you ever tried to decide your rain and your dry season, they would find they had miscounted the clouds." He looked up, then back down. "You do not need to impress anyone to receive it. It is not a bribe for obedience. It is your share of the story. Use it to feed who must be fed and free who must be freed. If any person in your house uses hunger to control you, know that their power is a small fire that will die when the rain comes." The room held its breath. Even the storm outside seemed to lean in. "How much?" Derek asked in a voice that thought it sounded casual and did not. Mr. Rowland turned the page. "Estimated current value of principal assets, with accrued dividends and penalties collected for delays, $150 million. The number fell into the kitchen like a stone into a still pool. And the rings it made touched everything. The cracked tile by the sink, the picture of Maya in first grade tacked to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a mango, the pantry door with its prim padlock, Derek's watch glint, Nia's hands trembling over a piece of foil slick with pepper oil, the little carved woman on the sill with her arms open like someone who has known this moment all along and never once said rush. "Impossible," Derek said, but his lips barely moved around the word. Scam! It is not, Mr. Rowland said. He reached into the folder and slid out documents, trust formation papers, notarized updates, bank letters, certifications stamped with embossed seals that caught the kitchen's weak light and threw it back real. He slid out another envelope, smaller, addressed to Nia alone. This one, he said, contains the immediate steps. There is a call we must make before midnight. There is an authorization form. There is an account number and a key for a safe deposit box. Derek's hand twitched toward the papers, then stopped when Mr. Rowland's calm gaze did not move. Nia was not breathing. She made herself inhale. She made herself count. She made herself look at Maya, who had slowed her eating, listening without understanding the number, but knowing from the grown faces that something large had entered the room. She made herself look at Derek, whose jaw worked as if he had found a piece of bone in soup he had expected to be tender. When is your birthday? Auntie Ifeoma asked gently. Tonight, Nia said, the word failing once and then landing. At 11:59. Oh, Auntie Ifeoma said, and smiled a small, deep smile. Your grandmother loved drama. The clock above the stove ticked. 7:42. The wind eased for a moment, and then the rain came harder, as if the sky had decided to wash everything clean in one evening. Nia felt something open in her chest that was not just relief, not just shock. Something like a room she had not entered in years, because she had not known the key lived in her pocket. She reached for the smaller envelope. Derek moved faster. His hand closed on the envelope first. No, Nia said. She did not shout it. She did not whisper it. She said it like a woman who had spoken every polite word in the book and found the last page and turned it. It's for me, she added, and the way she said me made even the little carved woman on the sill stand taller. Derek held her gaze. Something ugly and old flickered in his eyes. Well, he had rehearsed speeches for 6 months, hymns and scriptures and syllables that kept him at the center. This scene was not in his script. He tightened his fingers around the envelope. Everything in this house goes through me, he said, voice quiet, dangerous. Not this, Mr. Rowland said. Let go of the property of a client. Derek did not move. Auntie Ifeoma turned her head toward the hallway, toward the padlocked pantry. She took in the lock the way a nurse takes in a fever, partly with eyes, mostly with understanding. Mr. Johnson, she said, do you know the difference between a fast and starvation? One is chosen. The other is used like a whip. He laughed, a small, bitter sound. You don't know our story. You just met us. I know a whip when I see one, she said. My back has never forgotten the stories of women who were told their hunger was holy while the men who preached ate well. I know a house that has lost its laughter, and I know when rain is knocking and a man is pretending the roof is dry. Nia reached again for the envelope. Derek jerked his hand back. For a moment they stood in a small battlefield measured in inches in the space between breasts. Then Maya said very softly, with meat pie crumbs on her lips, Daddy, can Mama have her letter? The words came with the quiet strength children sometimes carry like lanterns into rooms where adults are stumbling. Derek's face changed with the effort of holding its shape. He didn't release the envelope. Not yet. The raindrops on the window raced one another. A car engine idled at the curb. Another door thudded. Voices low, professional. Nia glanced toward the window and saw, through the water-smeared glass, a black SUV and a woman stepping out in a tailored coat with the same embossed River and A pin on her lapel. 2 uniformed officers stood beside her, hoods up against the rain, hands at ease. Mr. Rowland checked his watch. He nodded once, as if at a timekeeper. Back up, he murmured. Protocol for high-value deliveries when there's risk of interference. We prefer not to use it. Derek's jaw tightened. You called the police to my house? We called the law to the trust, Mr. Rowland said. Your home is incidental. Lightning laced the clouds. Thunder followed like a heavy door slamming far away. Nia looked at the envelope in Derek's hand and felt not rage but clarity. She saw the last 6 months like a row of padlocks cut open one by one. She saw the little girl who had learned not to ask for seconds. She saw her own reflection in the window at night, whispering prayers that sounded like apologies. She saw the woman in the life she had before, A woman who could make Yalov so fragrant, even the neighbors invented errands to pass her porch at dinner time, who laughed loud in markets, who danced holding a plastic bag of okra and did not spill a single pod. That woman had not gone. She had been waiting. "Give me my letter," Nia said again, "or I will take it in front of witnesses, and you will explain to these officers why you are interfering with legal documents addressed to someone who is not you." Auntie Ifeoma's mouth tipped up at one corner. The approval of an elder watching a seed, remember, it is a tree. Derek looked at the officers, at Mr. Rowland, at the woman in the coat stepping up onto the porch, at Maya licking pepper from her fingers. He opened his hand. The envelope slid free. Nia took it. Her fingers shook. She slid her thumb beneath the flap and unfolded the paper inside. It was short. It was simple. It was her name, and a bank, and an instruction, and a number like a horizon. It was a key. She felt its weight settle into her palm and move up her arm and set itself in her spine. "Pack a small bag," Mr. Rowland said quietly. "We will need to go to the bank branch with a notary, then to a vault. We will make the call as we drive. We have to beat midnight." "Pack for both of you," Auntie Ifeoma added, her eyes flicking to Maya, "and bring the little woman on the windowsill. She looks like she has been waiting to travel." Derek stepped back, then forward again, words moving behind his teeth like fish in murky water. He looked at the pantry lock. He looked at the meat pie. He looked at the clock. His face rearranged itself into gentleness so fast it was almost a sound. "Nia," he began, voice soft, a voice she had fallen in love with once, before it learned to bless the bars it had built. "We did this together. We suffered together. This changes everything for us. For me. For who chose it?" Auntie Ifeoma asked. Derek's mouth closed. He stared at her as if she were a riddle that would not yield to his favorite answer. From outside, a short, sharp knock on the doorframe. Different from the first. Professional. The woman with the pin stepped inside and held out a small black case. "I'm Ms. Atalaya, Regional Trust Officer," she said. "I'll require a thumbprint and a match on 2 forms of ID for the beneficiary. We'll do the call in the car. There's traffic on the expressway. We'll use the siren if we must." Nia's heart stuttered. 2 forms of ID. Her driver's license sat in her purse. Her birth certificate was in a folder in the bedroom closet. Her passport Derek had safe kept months ago. Until things settle, since you're misplacing things lately. She had asked for it back twice. Later had joined a pile of unswept days. She lifted her eyes to Derek. He understood exactly what she needed from him. He also understood, in that narrow, cruel way control does, the power of a small refusal when time is short. "My passport," Nia said steady. Derek's smile returned, gentle as a ribbon on a gift box. "I don't know where you put it," he said. Thunder cracked, close enough to shake the plates in the cupboard. The clock ticked, each click a footstep toward midnight. The officers on the porch shifted, rain making halos around their boots. The little carved woman on the sill seemed, in the jitter of lightning, to tilt her head. "Nia," Auntie Ifeoma said, as quietly as a pot lid settling, "where do men who like keys hide keys?" Nia saw it as if the kitchen had suddenly become transparent. Derek reaching above the pantry door frame, sliding down the little square of metal. She saw the hallway closet where he had said he would put travel documents for order. She saw the safe she had once half noticed under the winter coats. Small, black, a thing you tuck away for emergencies. She saw the scrap of character that sometimes betrays a careful man, the habit of hiding each lock's key in the same kind of place. Derek's eyes flicked, just once, toward the closet door. Ms. Atalaya lifted an eyebrow and checked her watch. Mr. Rowland gathered the documents. Maya stood, holding what was left of the pie with both hands, crumbs falling to the quilt like confetti at a parade that had finally turned the corner. Nia turned toward the hallway, and the house that had held 6 months of hunger seemed to lean with her. She took one step, then another, and reached for the closet knob. As her fingers closed around it, the power blinked back to life in a sudden, guilty flash. The kitchen light flared. The fridge hummed. The clock jumped and then continued. Somewhere deep in the house, a lock clicked. the little sound a small safe makes when it wakes and waits. Nia pulled the closet door open, and there, balanced on the safe's top like a dare, lay a single familiar blue booklet, the passport. She reached for it, and behind her, Derek moved fast, a blur of suit sleeve and outstretched hand. His voice no longer gentle, no longer practiced, rising at last to its true shape as he lunged, shouting her name just as lightning struck so close, the room went white. The flash burned the kitchen white. For a heartbeat, everyone became a paper cutout. Nia at the closet, arm outstretched, Derek lunging, Maya mid-gasp, Auntie Ifeoma steady as a tree, Mr. Rowland turning, documents clutched to his chest. Miss Adelaya's case snapped half open, two officers in the doorway, rain silvering their shoulders. Then the world dropped back into color and sound. "Stop, sir!" one officer barked, already moving. Derek's finger swept air. Nia had the passport, blue cover slick with moisture from her own hands. She pivoted like a dancer who remembered all at once that her body still belonged to her. The officer caught Derek at the elbow, not violent, but firm the way a locked door is firm, and put him back on his heels. "This is my house," Derek snapped, voice fraying. "And that is her document," the officer said evenly. "You will not interfere again." He let go slowly, warning loaded into the space between fingers and fabric. Derek smoothed his sleeve, face arranging itself into offended calm. "There's no need for dramatics," he said, even as his pulse jumped at his throat. "Nia," Miss Adelia said, already business. "Two IDs, passport and license. Mr. Rowland, copy on your tablet. Officer, please note time. If there's a birth certificate, bring it. While you gather, I'll start the call." Nia moved fast, grateful for orders she could obey that were not a whip. She reached into the folder wedged behind the winter coats and found the cream envelope with her birth certificate and Maya's. She slid both into her tote with the carved wooden woman, the license, a change of clothes for Maya, and the quilt. On impulse, she took the small frame photo of her grandmother from the mantel, the one with the sky behind her and a head tie tied like a crown. When she passed the kitchen doorway, Auntie Ifeoma's eyes flicked up to the pantry frame. Nia looked too. A tiny square of metal gleamed there, taped. She reached up, pressed, and the key dropped into her palm. The thing was so small it seemed a bad joke. She clicked the lock open. Inside, rows of neatly stacked cans, a bag of rice, spices, a jar of honey, a tin of baby formula that made her throat close with a sudden, fierce grief. All of it sealed away behind virtue words while her child's stomach had growled in the night. She left the door open. The smell of honey and pepper and cumin spilled into the room like a small parade reclaiming a street. "Pack it," Auntie Ifeoma murmured, reading her face and the clock in the same glance. "Later, we will come back for the rest." Maya stood uncertain in the doorway, pie finished, hands sticky. "Can this quilt come?" she asked, voice small. "It goes where you go," Nia said, rolling it tight. Derek stood in the hallway, eyes moving the way a cornered cats do, mapping exits and edges. He had always been good at seeing seams, where an apology could be slipped in to close a conversation, where a scripture could be laid like a lid on a question, where a budget note could pinch a dream at the root. Now his gaze landed on the back door, the carport beyond, the neighbors' lit windows. Rain drummed like a crowd with one message: time. "There will be no sirens," he said to Miss Adelia, words low and soft, shaping themselves into reason. "We have a child here. We have a neighborhood. We can talk like adults." "We are," she replied, already pressing the wireless earpiece into place. "And we will keep to the law and the clock." Her thumb brushed her phone. "Adelia, Regional Trust," she said into the mic. "Beneficiary located. Proceeding to in-person verification. Prepare control room for live ID match. Note, high-risk domestic interference. Law enforcement present. Estimated arrival at branch 26 minutes with escort." Nia took one last look at the kitchen, at the simple things that had lived with them through the thin months. The little carved woman lifted from the sill felt warm in her hand, as if the wood held summer and was willing to share. They moved. The officers flanked the group without fuss. Mr. Rowland tucked the folder under his arm like a running back guarding a ball. Auntie Ifeoma took Maya's free hand, the other carrying the leftover pie wrapped again in foil. Derek followed, silent now, mouth set, eyes alert the way a man's eyes get when a play he designed is operating without him. Outside, the rain had softened to a steady veil. The SUVs idled, wipers ticking like metronomes. Neighbors' blinds shifted and stilled. Someone called out, "Y'all good?" And Auntie Afeoma answered without turning, "We will be," which was the truest sentence spoken on that street in months. Nia slid into the back seat between Maya and Auntie, tote hugged to her middle. The leather smelled like something she used to be able to afford. Mr. Rowland took the passenger seat. Ms. Adelia drove. The second SUV slipped ahead, lights on, an officer inside. They pulled from the curb, and the city opened before them, wet and shining. For a block, no one spoke. The tires hissed on the road. Maya traced a finger along the fog her breath made on the window, and drew a heart without quite knowing why. The wipers kept time. The clock on the dash said 8:06. Derek's silhouette shrank in the rear window. Then it didn't. Then it moved. He had gotten into his own car, the sedan he'd told Nia he'd sold for debt relief. He had kept a spare. He slid from the alley like a shark joins a current and started to follow. One car back, lights low. "Tail, 3 o'clock," the officer in the lead SUV said over the radio. Professional calm again. As if the words were squares in a board they moved pieces around. "Copy," Miss Adelia said. She did not accelerate. "Anything beyond a look, we let squad handle. Our work is the clock." "Y'all," Maya whispered, eyes on the rear glass. "Is Daddy playing a car game?" "No," Auntie said gently. "He forgot the rules." They turned onto the expressway. The city's damp glass towers rose and fell at their flanks. Nia's breast counted against the mile markers. She forced her mind from the mirror to the front, to steps, to names, to the way the future might look if you filled it with light instead of apology. On the phone, a calm voice crackled from the trust office control room. "Regional, we're up. We'll need the beneficiary to hold both IDs in sequence at the camera. We will match liveness. We'll confirm on the call at arrival. Legal is on. Compliance is on. Note, 2 login attempts on the dormant portal were flagged at 3:12 p.m. and 6:47 p.m. No access granted. Possible credential phishing via email last week. Blocked by spam filter. Your call is recorded." Nia's hands tightened. "Who tried?" she asked. "We don't speculate," the voice said. "We note risk. We lock logs." Derek's sedan hovered in the next lane. He didn't try to overtake. He didn't drift back. He just sat there, steady, matching pace. The officer in the lead SUV bumped a little faster, not so much the eye would notice, but enough to test a shadow's patience. "Tell me about your grandmother," Auntie said, voice low. A rope of calm thrown across a river of nerves. The back of Nia's throat loosened. She looked down at the wooden figure, cupped in her palm, smoothed by years of cooking, steam, and sunshine. "She was small, but she filled a room," Nia said. "She could hush a rumor by stirring a pot. In Houston, when I was little, she kept plantains in brown paper so they'd ripen sweet, and she told stories while she fried them. We slept on her floor on weekends, and she would say, 'A girl with her own spoon eats where she chooses.'" "Did she ever talk about land?" Mr. Rowland asked without turning, eyes on traffic and the clock. Voice soft enough to leave kindness in the question. "Only through proverbs," Nia said, smiling at a memory that surprised her by arriving whole. "If rain sees the ground will answer." She lifted the wooden woman. "She gave me this the night before she went back home the last time. Keep her where you cook," she said. "Courage rises with steam. And when someone starts to starve your house for power, open windows, open doors, open your mouth." I didn't open mine fast enough." "You opened it tonight," Auntie said. "That is enough." Maya leaned her head on Nia's shoulder, drowsy the way only a recent full belly makes a child. "Grandma used to sing a frying song," Nia whispered to her. "We'll sing it again. We'll fry plantains and make the whole block jealous." Traffic slowed. The sky pulsed purple at the edges, then slid deeper into night. Nia's chest steadied with the rhythm of wipers and the steady, sure voice on the phone, charting steps to a door she had not known was hers. The sedan behind them blinked a signal and ducked into the lane behind the lead SUV. The officer's brake lights flickered once. A small warning. The sedan corrected. The officer narrated, shadows holding proper distance. No lane games. Nia let her eyes close for 2 breaths and saw, as sleep sometimes hands you truth unwrapped. Not the car, not the city, but the day she had said yes. Derek had stood under a string of backyard lights in his cousin's yard. July heat making everybody shine, and he'd told a joke that made 3 uncles slap their knees. He was careful with elders, charming with children, thoughtful at the grill. He had helped her clean trays without being asked. When the aunties leaned in to whisper, they said, hard-working church man, no children on the side. He had asked about her grandmother respectfully and listened. When she told him she wanted a simple life made of good meals and shared bills and birthdays that meant something, he said, me too. The first time he corrected her, it sounded like care. You don't need those friends. They don't celebrate you. The first time he measured the oil she poured into a pan, it sounded like thrift. We're going to build. The first time he reached for the grocery list and said, I'll do the shopping. You rest. It felt like love. The first time he suggested they practice a fast to be aligned on finances, it sounded like devotion. The first time he used the word obedience in the kitchen, it felt like a plate. When her grandmother died 6 months ago and Nia could not get a ticket in time because, we'll make a better trip later after we stabilize, the air in their house changed. He began saying, my stewardship, so often it became a wallpaper word. He put a lock on the pantry with church hands. He called hunger a lesson. He made the meter go silent like prayer beads run through fingers, click by click until the dark climaxed in midnight. He smiled when she cried. He smiled when she smiled. The smile never touched his eyes. Nia opened her eyes to the city again. Nothing had moved. Everything had. She tightened her arm around Maya and felt bone and soft child weight and promise. She would never let small words make her small again. They slid off the expressway into downtown streets that glittered with wet. The bank tower rose ahead, lights on in the high floors like windows into another weather. Ms. Adelia braked at the entrance to a private ramp. A guard scanned the windshield, nodded at her badge, raised the gate. The second SUV took up position at the street mouth. The sedan with Derek drifted past as if undecided, then pulled to the curb half a block away and idled. He did not get out. He sat with both hands on the wheel the way a man sits when he is counting and the numbers keep slipping. Up 2 levels, the control room voice said. Private client bay, cameras hot. We'll meet you in the vestibule. Be advised. Branch closes to the public in 14 minutes. After that, we own the building until midnight. They spiraled down, parked. Air changed, quieter, conditioned, the hum of money sitting still. Nia's heart knocked once, hard as if to signal, remember. In the vestibule, glass and light framed a small stage of people, a notary, a security chief with sleeves too tight over his forearms, a woman in compliance with a braid like a rope, and the River A pin on her lapel. They did not look surprised to see a child, an elder, a lawyer with a wet folder, an officer with rain on his hat. They looked like people who deal in time and signatures, and knew when to move fast without dropping any piece. IDs, the notary said gently, hand out. Camera, the security chief said, indicating a lens with a blue ring. Nia held up her driver's license. The lens blinked. She held up her passport. The lens blinked again. A pad beeped for a thumbprint. She pressed. A screen drew a green circle around her face. Match, the control room voice said in everyone's ears. Business calm, turning a corner toward relieved. Proceed to vault. A small door sighed open at the end of the hall. The security chief led, steps soft on tile. Maya squeezed Nia's fingers, eyes big as coins. Behind them, the elevator dinged, and another team stepped out in navy windbreakers, printed with white letters, FED. Financial Investigation Division. The woman at their front flipped a badge that flashed like lightning. We're here for a related matter, she said, scanning their group with a quick, practiced eye. We need a word before you open anything. Mr. Rowland stiffened. Counsel present, he said. What matter? The agent angled her chin toward the glass. Outside, through the rain-glossed pane, they could all see the sedan that had followed them. What matter? Mr. Rowland repeated. The agent met Nia's eyes. At 7:03 p.m., she said, a man attempted to file a power of attorney at another branch under your name, ma'am. He carried a forged letter and a copy of a passport. He was denied, our system flagged. He left. He is now in a vehicle registered to your household, parked across from this building. We have reason to believe he has been in contact with a third party who planned to move assets once any door opened. Nia felt the air thin. Beside her, Auntie Ifeoma's hand found her elbow, anchor steady. We can arrest now, the agent went on, or we can wait 3 minutes and catch a larger fish when he meets his partner with a bag he thinks will be full. She looked at Nia. You tell us. It's your night. The security chief cleared his throat. Vault access window closes at 11:40 for checksum. If we miss it, we cannot reopen until business day. The clock on the wall said 8:32. Nia looked from the door that led to the vault to the glass that showed the street to the faces of people who had placed themselves between her and the old life and the new one. Rain trailed slow paths down the window like tears on a calm face. She swallowed, lifted her chin, and chose. Wait, she said. The agent nodded once, quick and sure, already signaling to her team, already moving into positions a chessboard would envy. On the glass, headlights flared as another car slid to the curb behind Derek's sedan. A door opened. A figure stepped out in a hooded jacket, tall, fast, carrying a metal case. Maya's hand tightened. Small bones warm in Nia's palm. The clock ticked. The vault door stood ajar, a mouth about to speak, and the hooded figure bent to the sedan's window, spoke through the crack, then straightened and turned its face toward the bank, where Nia stood watching through the rain. It was a face she knew, a face she never expected to see again tonight. It was her mother's sister, Auntie Blessing, the one who hadn't answered calls in months, the one who always knew a shortcut, the one who loved to say, money moves faster when you use both hands. She lifted the metal case and smiled directly at the glass, as if she could see Nia on the other side. Now, the agent whispered into her radio, and the vestibule erupted into practice motion, while down in Nia's bones, two truths collided. The door to the vault was open, and a woman with her blood in her face had come to steal her future. The bank lobby was alive with motion, agents fanning out like shadows, the notary clutching her briefcase, the security chief barking clip directions into his radio. Nia stood rooted, heart thundering against her ribs. Maya's hand pressed into hers so tightly she could feel the small pulse beating there. Auntie Ifeoma steadied her elbow, voice a whisper meant for her alone. Hold your ground, child. Don't blink. Tonight the rain is yours. Through the rain-streaked glass, Blessing's smile never faltered. She raised the silver case as if offering a gift to the night. Derek sat in the driver's seat, jaw clenched, fingers drumming the wheel in a rhythm of desperation. His eyes cut toward Nia's reflection in the glass, as though daring her to intervene. Mr. Rowland's voice carried, calm but sharp. Agents, be aware. The ant is family. The optics are sensitive. Family doesn't starve you, Auntie Ifeoma muttered. Family doesn't show up at midnight with thieves' tools in a box. The lead FID agent raised her palm, signaling her team. Two officers slipped outside, their dark jackets blending into the storm. The figure of Blessing tensed, shoulders drawn. Even through the glass, Nia saw it. The tilt of her head, the way she weighed her chances. She had always been a gambler, even when they were children and Blessing bet mango seeds like currency in the dusty yard. Maya tugged Nia's sleeve. Mama, is Auntie Blessing bad now? Nia crouched, pulling Maya close. She's lost her way, baby, but tonight we stay strong. Before Maya could respond, the sound of fists against metal rang out. Derek shoved his door open, shouting through the storm, She's lying! She's my wife's guardian. That money belongs to all of us, my household, my rules. The words struck Nia like blows, echoing the months he'd caged her in with obedience and scripture. She stood slowly, clutching her tote, her carved wooden figure heavy in her palm. Her voice, when it came, cut clear as the lightning above. You are not my guardian, you are not my law, and you are not my storm. The glass vibrated as Derek slammed his car door shut and stalked toward the bank entrance. Blessing hovered at his side, case still raised. The agents outside moved in fast, shouting commands drowned half by thunder. Inside, the compliance officer whispered urgently to Miss Adelia, "We'll miss the vault window if this stalls. 11:40. If she doesn't sign, everything freezes until business day." "Then we hold the line," Adelia said, jaw set. The vestibule doors hissed open as Derek reached them. An officer blocked his way, palm out. "Sir, you have no jurisdiction here. Step back." But Derek leaned forward, face flushed, eyes locked on Nia. "You starve a woman and she still obeys. But give her money and she forgets who owns her roof." The words slashed the room in half. For a moment silence reigned, broken only by the storm's roar. Then Auntie Ifeoma's laughter rolled out, low and dangerous. "Roof?" she said, stepping toward him, her silver braids glistening under the fluorescent light. "Boy, you starved her under God's sky, and you think you own a roof?" Derek's hand twitched toward the case in Blessing's arms, but the agents were faster. One moved like lightning, seizing Blessing's wrist, the other knocking the case to the ground with a metallic crack. It burst open. Inside, not weapons, not tools, but stacks of counterfeit documents, stamps, and seals gleaming under plastic sleeves. A gasp rippled through the room. The lead agent lifted one sheet, turning it for all to see. A forged deed transferring the trust to Derek's name. Another, a false power of attorney. Each paper was a nail in the coffin of his carefully crafted image. Derek lunged once more, but the officer's arm locked around his chest, pinning him. He struggled like a man drowning in his own lies. "She is mine. Everything she has is mine." Nia stepped forward, passport clutched to her chest, voice rising strong enough to still even his rage. "I was never yours to starve, and tonight I will feed my child with the fortune my grandmother left me. Not the chains you forged." Maya pressed against her side, eyes wide. The carved wooden woman in Nia's palm seemed to warm again, as if an ancestor leaned close, whispering strength through the grain. The lead agent signaled, and the officers dragged Derek and Blessing back toward the rain. Their voices faded, swallowed by thunder and sirens. The glass doors hissed shut once more, sealing out the storm. Nia turned toward the waiting vault. The notary held out her pen. The compliance officer slid the form across the gleaming table. "Mrs. Johnson," she said softly, "time is moving. Are you ready to claim what has always been yours?" Nia's hand trembled, but not with fear. She lowered her passport, lifted the pen, and leaned over the paper. And just as the tip touched the line, the lights flickered. The vault door shuddered. An alarm split the silence. "Unauthorized access attempt," the security chief barked, staring at the monitor. His eyes widened. "From inside the bank's servers." Someone else was in the system, and the vault, her vault, was seconds from sealing shut. The alarm shrieked like 1,000 whistles in a stadium. Red strobes spun across the walls, washing every face in jagged flashes of crimson. The vault door, half open, jerked as hydraulics groaned, gears locking into emergency sequence. "System breach," the security chief barked. He slammed his fist onto a control panel, trying to override. "It's closing. 40 seconds till seal." The notary clutched her briefcase tighter. Miss Adelia snapped to the control room voice still humming in her earpiece. "Where's the breach point?" A pause, static. Then, internal node, level 2 server room, someone local, not remote. Nia's breath caught. Internal. That meant it wasn't Derek or Blessing anymore. They were in custody outside. This was someone inside the bank. Auntie Ifeoma's face hardened, silver braids glinting under the pulsing lights. "Snake in the granary," she murmured. "Always one more." The compliance officer shoved a tablet toward Nia. "Thumbprint here now. If we get your authorization locked before the seal, the assets are frozen under your name. They can't shift it, breach or no breach." Nia's hand hovered. The alarm scream blurred into Maya's small, frightened whimper. "Mama, what's happening?" Nia bent quickly, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "It's just noise, baby. We're not losing what Grandma gave us. Not tonight." She pressed her thumb down. The tablet blinked green. "One signature down," the compliance officer said. "We need the second on hard copy inside the vault. Without it, the system won't finalize." The vault groaned again, inching shut. 20 seconds. Move! The security chief roared. The team surged forward. Mr. Rowland clutched the documents like a shield. The notary, panting, kept pace. Auntie Ifeoma half-dragged Maya, refusing to let the child see fear. Nia ran with them, tote thumping against her hip, wooden figurine pressed inside like an ancestor's heartbeat. They reached the vault door as the sirens wailed louder. The thick steel disc began its slow death rattle swing. The chief wedged a baton into the gap, muscles straining. "Through!" he shouted. Ms. Adelia shoved Nia inside. Mr. Rowland followed. Then Auntie Ifeoma with Maya. The notary slipped through at the last second. The chief yanked the baton free and stumbled back, just as the door sealed with a thunderous boom. The alarm cut. Silence swallowed the room. Only their ragged breaths filled the space. The vault stretched before them, a cathedral of steel shelves and lockboxes. Lights hummed overhead, steady here despite the chaos outside. Naya's knees wobbled. Did we make it?" Mr. Rowland straightened his tie, though sweat streaked his face. "Yes, but whoever breached will try again. The system's integrity rests on your signature, Mrs. Johnson." The notary stepped forward, pen poised. She laid the contract on a sleek metal table in the center of the vault. "This is it," she said softly. "Sign here, and the trust is yours beyond contest. No court, no fraud, no claim can strip it after tonight." Nia stared at the line. Her name waited there. Letters printed bold. Nia A. Johnson. Her fingers shook as she reached for the pen. Images flooded her. The padlocked pantry, Maya's ribs showing through her shirt, Derek smiling while she wept. Blessings grinned through the rain. Then another image rose, her grandmother frying plantains, humming that old song, saying, "A girl with her own spoon eats where she chooses." Nia gripped the pen. She touched the paper, and the vault lights flickered. The overhead fixtures buzzed, dimmed, then blazed white again. The notary gasped. The compliance officer's voice crackled through Miss Adelia's earpiece. "Breach escalated. Server override in progress. They're trying to reset beneficiary identity in real time." Nia froze. "What does that mean?" "It means," Mr. Rowland said grimly, "if they succeed before you sign, the system could recognize another name as primary." "Whose name?" Auntie Ifeoma demanded. The compliance officer's voice came harsh, almost broken by static. "Derek Johnson!" Maya whimpered, clutching her mother's arm. "Mama, hurry!" Nia raised the pen again, but her hand trembled harder. The air felt thick, pressing her lungs. She had been starved for 6 months, treated like dust, and now the world told her her freedom depended on one line of ink while an invisible enemy clawed at the wires. "Do it!" Auntie Ifeoma urged, fierce. "Claim it before the snake bites." Nia set the pen tip down. Her hand steadied. Then the table vibrated. A soft click echoed through the vault, metallic and sharp. From the shadows between the shelves, a figure stepped forward. A bank employee's uniform clung damp to his frame, badge crooked, his face familiar. He was the teller who had smiled at her months ago when she cashed a small check, the one who had said softly, "You deserve better, miss." Now his eyes gleamed different, cold. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low, "but this money doesn't belong in your hands." He lifted a device that hummed blue with stolen power. The vault wasn't sealed after all. There was a thief inside with them. Viewers, imagine yourself in Nia's shoes, starved, betrayed, finally at the edge of freedom, only to face a new enemy inside the vault itself. What would you do in this moment? Would you fight? Would you run? Or would you trust the system to protect you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story has your heart racing, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with friends so they can join you on this suspenseful journey. The humming blue light from the device painted the vault walls in eerie shadows. The man in the crooked badge, Michael, the teller Nia had once trusted with a kind smile, stood firm between the shelves of wealth, his hands steady on the strange tool. "Step away from the table," he ordered. "Nobody signs anything tonight." The notary's breath hitched. Auntie Ifeoma instinctively moved Maya behind her, shielding the child with her body. Mr. Rowland adjusted his glasses, squinting at the device. An override scanner. Old model. You've been planning this. Michael's lips curled into a half smile. Planning? No. Preparing. You think families deserve to hoard millions while children outside these doors can't pay for textbooks? While my own mother works double shifts in a hospital with no pension? That fortune doesn't belong to you, Mrs. Johnson. It belongs to everyone. His words hung heavy. For a split second, doubt pierced Nia's chest. Could it be true? Could her grandmother's wealth cause others pain? But then she looked at Maya, ribs still sharp beneath her shirt, and she remembered 6 months of forced hunger, of humiliation dressed as holy discipline. No, she whispered more to herself than him, then louder. This isn't about justice. If it was, you wouldn't be hiding in shadows with stolen tools. This is about greed. Michael's expression hardened. Greed? Look at you, clutching papers worth $150 million while your neighbors line up at soup kitchens. Don't lecture me about greed. The device whined louder, the blue glow spreading across the vault's walls like a spiderweb of light. On the table, the tablet flickered, the words beneficiary verification pending, blinking red. Stop him, the notary cried. If he sinks the override with the server breach, Derek's name could finalize before hers. At that, Auntie Ifeoma's eyes sharpened. She stepped forward, voice carrying the weight of a drumbeat. Young man, you think hunger makes you righteous, but you're wrong. Hunger makes us desperate, yes, but it never made us thieves. You dishonor every ancestor who starved with dignity. Her words shook something in the air. But Michael's hand didn't waver. Nia felt her chest tighten. If she froze now, everything would vanish. The fortune, her freedom, Maya's future. Her grandmother's voice seemed to whisper from the carved figurine in her tote. A girl with her own spoon eats where she chooses. She stepped forward, slow, steady. Michael, she said, keeping her voice calm. Months ago, when I cashed that small check, you told me I deserved better. Did you mean it? His eyes flickered, just for a moment. I did. Then let me have better, Nia said. Not just for me, for her. She pulled Maya into the light. Her daughter's thin frame a testimony sharper than any argument. She hasn't known a full meal in weeks. 6 months, Michael. 6. Would you rob her too? The boy's face twisted, torn. His hand shook. The device hissed, its glow flickering. I didn't know. Now you do, Nia pressed. So choose. Stand with a thief who starved his wife and child, or stand with a woman who wants only to feed her own. The vault seemed to hold its breath. Then Michael's grip faltered. The device dropped, clattering against the steel floor. Sparks burst, then fizzled. He stared at his own hands, suddenly small, suddenly empty. Before relief could flood the room, the vault lights dimmed again. A voice crackled through the intercom above, low and familiar, dripping venom. Derek. You think you've won, Nia? You think one signature will save you? That trust isn't safety, it's a leash, and tonight I'll make sure it tightens. The intercom went dead. The vault door groaned as if something, or someone, was forcing it from the outside. The team turned, panic flickering across their faces. The notary whispered, He has someone else out there. The metal screeched. The sealed door began to shift. And Nia realized Derek wasn't finished. He was coming in. The vault door screeched like a wounded beast, the grinding of steel against steel echoing through the chamber. Every pair of eyes snapped toward it, fear stretching taut like a drum skin. The hydraulics, built to withstand earthquakes and bombs, should have been impenetrable. But someone, or something, was forcing it open. The security chief's voice crackled over Ms. Adelaya's earpiece, urgent and low. Emergency protocol compromised. Someone bypassed the outer control with an access badge. They're cutting power to the door. It won't hold. Who has that clearance? She shot back. A long pause. Then, only senior staff, or someone they've bribed. The vault shuddered again. A thin strip of light cut through as the massive disc inched open. Maya whimpered, burying her face in Nia's skirt. Auntie Ifeoma gripped her hand like a vice. Mr. Rowland pressed his back against the steel shelves, eyes darting for a strategy. The notary clutched her pen and papers like fragile armor. And Nia? She stood, heart pounding, staring at the widening crack. This was it, the moment when everything would be tested. With a hiss of hydraulics, the gap widened enough for a man to slip through. Derek. He stepped inside, his suit soaked, hair plastered to his forehead from the rain, but his smile was sharp and triumphant. Behind him came another figure, tall, broad-shouldered, face shadowed beneath a cap. He carried a duffel bag that clinked with tools. "Ladies and gentlemen," Derek said, voice calm as if he were leading a Sunday prayer. "Thank you for guarding my wife's inheritance. I'll take it from here." "You're under arrest," the notary stammered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. Derek chuckled. "Arrest? For what? For being a husband protecting his household? This fortune is mine by right. The head of the home owns the table." Nia's voice cracked like a whip. "You don't own me, you don't own Maya, and you don't own my grandmother's gift." Derek's smile faltered for half a second, but he masked it quickly. He gestured to the man with the bag. "This is Caleb. He's here to make sure the signatures go the way they should. If you cooperate, no one gets hurt." The duffel unzipped with a harsh rip. Inside, bolt cutters, crowbars, even a handheld blowtorch. Caleb's presence was like a shadow swallowing the room. Michael, the teller who had tried to stop them before, stepped forward, voice shaking. "Derek, don't do this. You've already starved them? Haven't you done enough?" Derek turned, eyes blazing. "Stay out of this, boy. You had your chance to stand on the winning side." Michael hesitated. Then he glanced at Nia and Maya, guilt flashing in his eyes. Slowly he edged backward, away from Derek, choosing silence instead of complicity. The vault lights flickered again. Sirens wailed faintly from the outer chambers. FID agents must have realized the breach. But in here, in this sealed steel tomb, they were trapped together until backup could force entry. Derek strode toward the table. The notary's papers spread like fragile wings. "Sign it over," he commanded, voice icy. "Power of attorney to me, right now." Nia's hands clenched around the carved wooden figurine inside her tote. She felt its grooves digging into her palm, as if her grandmother herself pressed courage into her veins. She lifted her chin. "No." The single word sliced through the room. Derek's smile cracked. Caleb took a menacing step forward, torch in hand, flames sputtering to life. Maya shrieked, clutching her mother's waist. "Think, Nia," Derek said, voice lowering into venom. "Without me, you are nothing. Without me, you wouldn't have survived the last 6 months. I kept a roof over your head. You'll thank me later when I make sure this fortune doesn't destroy you." Nia's rage finally surged free, hot and sharp. She stepped in front of Maya, her voice strong, carrying the weight of every hunger pang, every sleepless night, every tear shed in silence. "You didn't keep us alive. I kept us alive. Every scrap of food, every prayer, every sacrifice was mine. You called it obedience, but it was abuse. And tonight," she held up the pen, her hand trembling but firm, "I end it." She bent toward the contract. The notary's breath caught. Mr. Rowland leaned forward. Auntie Ifeoma whispered, "Do it, child." But Caleb roared, lunging forward, torch flaring. Derek shouted, "Stop her!" The flame whooshed across the vault, heat searing the air. Papers fluttered, sirens screamed, and in the chaos, Nia pressed the pen to the line. Ink bled into the page. But before she could finish her name, Caleb's massive hand slammed down, snatching the contract. The torch hissed close, too close. The paper curled, the edge blackening, smoke rising into the sterile vault air. The inheritance, the proof, was about to go up in flames. The flame licked the paper's edge, curling it black like dried leaves in harmattan fire. The acrid smell of burning ink filled the vault, sharp and choking. Maya screamed. The notary lunged forward with a cry, but Caleb swung his torch arm wide, forcing everyone back. "Stay where you are," he roared, his voice bouncing against the steel walls. "One more step and I'll turn this whole contract into ashes." Derek's smile returned, cruel and triumphant. "You see, Nia? This is what happens when you fight your head. The head always wins." But Nia didn't step back. Instead, she held her ground, the carved wooden figurine clutched in her hand like a weapon older than the torch, older than any law. Her grandmother's words whispered in her heart, "A girl with her own spoon eats where she chooses." She raised her voice steady and sharp. "Caleb, listen to me. That torch won't give you money. Burning those papers won't make you rich. But it will make you a thief who destroyed a child's future. Is that who you want to be?" For the first time, Caleb hesitated. His grip faltered. Sweat rolled down his temple, not just from the torch's heat. "Don't listen to her," Derek snapped, fury spitting from every word. "She's weak. She's nothing. Burn it, Caleb. Do it for the cut I promised you." Caleb's jaw clenched. The paper smoldered, ember creeping closer to the signature line. And then, Auntie Ifeoma's voice cut through like a drum beat at dawn. "Boy," she barked, her tone thunderous, commanding. "You think fire will hide your shame? Fire does not erase, it reveals. Every ancestor watching will see you, and they will spit your name from their mouths." Her silver braids shimmered in the vault light. She looked less like an old woman now, and more like a priestess at a sacred grove, calling down judgment. Caleb froze. His eyes darted between the torch, the burning page, and Auntie Ifeoma's unflinching stare. The weight of her words crushed him in a way Derek's promises never could. With a growl, he snapped the torch off and hurled the singed contract back onto the table. The edge was blackened, but the signature line was untouched. "Enough of this," Caleb muttered, stepping back. "I didn't sign up to burn children's futures." He kicked the duffel toward the wall. Tools scattered across the steel floor with a metallic clatter. Then he stormed to the far corner, slumping against the shelves, head in his hands. Derek's face twisted. "Coward!" he spat. "You'll regret crossing me." But before he could regain control, Nia snatched the contract, pressed the pen hard to the paper, and scrawled her full name with a trembling flourish. The ink bled bold and permanent. Nia A. Johnson. The notary rushed forward, stamping her seal with a decisive thud. "Finalized!" she gasped. "The trust is legally hers, irrevocable." For a beat, silence. Then the vault systems hummed, green lights flashing across the monitors. The control room's voice crackled into the chamber. "Beneficiary confirmed. Assets transferred. Override attempts nullified." The words were a victory song. Nia exhaled, tears spilling hot down her cheeks. She pulled Maya close. Holding her so tight, the girl squeaked a laugh through her sobs. Auntie Ifeoma's eyes shone as she whispered, "Your grandmother is smiling, child." But the victory was short-lived. Derek's face darkened, rage twisting his features into something feral. He lunged at the table, knocking the notary aside, hands grabbing for the signed papers. "No," he bellowed. "This isn't over. That money is mine." Mr. Rowland stepped in, surprisingly fast for his age, blocking Derek's path with his own body. The impact sent both men staggering into the shelves, a rain of lockboxes clattering to the floor. Derek scrambled, wild, reaching for anything, a weapon, a leverage point, something to reclaim control. His hand closed around one of the heavy lockboxes. He lifted it high like a club, and with a roar, he swung it straight at Nia. The lockbox whistled through the air, heavy as iron and fueled by 6 months of Derek's seething rage. Nia barely had time to pull Maya behind her when, clang! The lockbox struck metal instead of flesh. Auntie Ifeoma had stepped in, her thin frame deceptively strong, intercepting the blow with a steel rod she'd snatched from the scattered tools. Sparks flew, the sound ringing like a bell in a temple. "You will not touch her," Auntie hissed, eyes blazing, her silver braids quivering like lightning threads. Derek staggered back, panting, wild-eyed. "Stay out of this, old woman. This is my family." "Your family?" Auntie's voice cracked like thunder. "You starved them. You called your whip obedience. You are no husband, no father. You are a famine in a suit." The words sliced Derek deeper than the steel could. His face twisted, but before he could strike again, Mr. Rowland tackled him from the side. Both men crashed into the vault shelves, documents and lockboxes spilling across the floor. Derek grunted, thrashing, while Roland held on with surprising ferocity. "Signatures are done," Roland shouted over the struggle. "You've lost, Derek. The trust is sealed." But Derek's voice came back, raw and vicious. "Then I'll seal her fate instead." With a sudden shove, he threw Roland off and lunged again, this time not for Nia, but for the notary. His logic was cruel and quick. Destroy the witness, destroy the proof. The notary shrieked, stumbling back against the table, papers fluttering around her like terrified birds. Derek's hand clamped onto her arm, lockbox raised high for the strike. "No!" Nia's scream tore through the vault. She surged forward, the carved wooden figurine still in her hand. Without thinking, she swung. The figurine cracked against Derek's temple with a hollow thud. Time froze. The lockbox slipped from his grip, crashing to the floor. Derek swayed, eyes unfocused, blood trickling from his brow where the wood had split his skin. Then he laughed. Low, chilling, broken. "You think this is over, Nia? That money is poison. Your grandmother, she wasn't the saint you think. She built that fortune on secrets. Secrets that will eat you alive." The vault went silent, everyone staring at him. Even Caleb, slouched in the corner, lifted his head. "What secrets?" Nia demanded, her voice shaking but strong. Derek's bloody grin widened. "Check the safe deposit box tied to the trust. You'll see. She left you more than money. She left you curses." The words slithered into the room, heavy, impossible to ignore. Nia's chest tightened, doubt clawing at the edges of her relief. Was it true? Had her grandmother hidden something else in this vault? Before anyone could press him further, the vault door groaned again, this time opening cleanly. FID agents stormed in, weapons drawn, voices commanding. In seconds, Derek was wrestled to the ground, cuffed and dragged out, still laughing like a madman. The air grew still. The alarms cut. For the first time all night, there was silence. Nia clutched Maya to her chest, her heart pounding. She looked down at the figurine in her hand, its head now chipped from the blow. Even broken, it seemed to hum with unseen strength. "Child," Auntie Ifeoma said softly, her voice trembling with something that wasn't fear but memory. "He is lying. He is bluffing. Don't let him plant weeds in your garden." But Mr. Rowland's eyes darkened. "No, he may be cruel, but he's not stupid. If your grandmother left a safe deposit box, it must contain something she wanted you to know. Something beyond the money." The notary, pale and shaking, pointed to the row of gleaming boxes. "Box 777, that's the number tied to the trust. It's waiting." Nia's breath caught. Her hands shook as she reached for the key in the envelope. Maya tugged her sleeve. "Mama, do we have to open it?" Nia bent, pressing her forehead to her daughter's. "Yes, baby, because if Grandma left us truth, we have to face it, even if it hurts." She slid the key into the box's slot. Click. The door swung open with a metallic sigh. Inside lay a leather-bound journal, its cover cracked with age. On top of it, a sealed envelope addressed in her grandmother's handwriting. For Nia, to be opened only after the storm. Nia's fingers trembled as she reached for it. Viewers, imagine finding out a $150 million inheritance came with a hidden journal of family secrets. Would you open it right away, or would you be too afraid of what it might reveal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see what Nia discovers in her grandmother's journal, don't forget to subscribe and share this story so others can join the suspense. The vault seemed to shrink as Nia held the journal and the sealed envelope in her hands. The hum of fluorescent lights above, the cold steel shelves, the lingering scent of smoke from Caleb's torch, all faded. For a moment, it was only her, the leather-bound weight of her grandmother's words, and the silence of everyone waiting. She sat at the steel table, Maya curled against her side, Auntie Ifeoma standing close like a pillar of stone. With trembling fingers, Nia broke the wax seal on the envelope. The paper inside crackled as though it had been waiting a lifetime to be read. Her grandmother's handwriting sprawled across the page, careful and deliberate. "My child, if your hands hold this, the storm I feared has come and passed. This fortune is yours, but you must know what it carries. You must know the story behind the money, lest it enslaves you the way it nearly enslaved me." Nia's eyes blurred with tears, but she kept reading aloud, her voice cracking, echoing off the vault walls. "The land that birthed this wealth was not ours to keep without scars. Your great-grandfather struck oil, yes, but the land belonged to families who were driven off by force. He fought to buy it back, but he could not save all of them. Blood and bitterness stained the ground. For decades, I lived with that truth. I vowed that when the money ripened, it would not become a curse. I prayed it would land in hands that would heal, not hoard. That is why I chose you, Nia. You have a tender heart, but also a spine of iron. You must feed, you must free, and you must forgive. Only then will this fortune not burn." The letter slipped from her fingers. For a long moment, the room was silent. "Blood money," Mr. Rowland said softly, almost reverently. "That's what she meant. It wasn't just wealth. It was responsibility." Auntie Afeoma nodded slowly, her eyes clouded but firm. "I knew your grandmother. I knew she carried a weight she never spoke of. Now I see it. She left it with you, child. Not just money, but the power to mend what was broken." Nia's heart pounded. Feed, free, forgive. The words seared into her like fire. She thought of Derek's laughter as he was dragged away, of blessings, betrayal, of the people her grandmother spoke of. Families driven from their land. This inheritance was not just her salvation, it was her test. Maya tugged her sleeve. "Mama, does this mean the money is bad?" Nia kissed her daughter's forehead. "No, baby. It means it's heavy, but we'll carry it together." She opened the journal. The first page held an old photograph, black and white, edges frayed. A group of villagers standing in front of a field, some smiling, others unsmiling, their eyes full of something the camera couldn't catch. On the back, in her grandmother's hand, were the words, "Never forget who paid the price." The next pages were filled with names, dates, transactions, even stories, accounts of people displaced, debts unpaid, promises unfulfilled. Her grandmother had documented it all, every injustice, every wound. Roland leaned over, awe flickering across his face. "This is history. If these records are true, you could expose half a century of corruption. You could demand reparations. This journal isn't just family. This is power." The realization hit Nia like a second inheritance. Money could buy houses and meals, but truth could shake governments. Her hands shook as she closed the journal. "Grandma didn't leave me a curse," she whispered. "She left me a choice." Auntie Ifeoma's eyes softened. "And what choice will you make, Nia?" Before she could answer, the vault door groaned again. IFED agents returned, their leader striding in with a clipboard. "Mrs. Johnson," she said crisply, "Derek is in custody, but he keeps insisting he has rights to the trust. We can't ignore the claims until the court reviews them. He's also demanding visitation with the child." Nia's stomach churned. After everything, after starving them, after trying to steal the inheritance, he still dared to claim rights. "Of course he is," Roland muttered bitterly. The agent placed a legal folder on the table. "You have two options. You can pursue immediate protection orders and cut him off entirely, or you can let the courts drag this out for months, maybe years. Either way, your next step is here." All eyes turned to Nia. Her daughter's small hand slipped into hers. The journal and the envelope sat before her, heavy as stone. She had money now. She had truth. She had freedom. But she also had a decision to make. Her grandmother's words echoed again. Feed, free, forgive. Could she truly forgive Derek? Could she even free herself from him without the courts? Or would the storm keep following until she cut him out once and for all? Her lips parted, ready to answer. But then the agent added, almost as an afterthought, "One more thing. The journal? It's already drawing attention. Someone tried to breach our server again, this time not for the trust, but for that book. Whoever's out there, they want it as badly as Derek did." The vault fell silent again. Nia realized the storm wasn't over. It had only changed shape. The vault air pressed heavy, thicker than steel, as though every secret her grandmother had written into the journal was alive and breathing around them. Nia sat at the table, the envelope and journal before her, Maya's hand in hers, the weight of millions on her shoulders and a storm of choices raging in her chest. The FID agent's words echoed. Someone else is after the journal. It wasn't enough that Derek had been dragged off in chains. It wasn't enough that Blessing had betrayed her. Even strangers, faceless predators, now stalked her grandmother's truth. Nia closed her eyes. She remembered the pantry's lock, the sound of Maya's empty stomach, Derek's smile as he rationed out suffering. She remembered her grandmother's voice. Feed, free, forgive. When she opened her eyes, they were steady. First, she said, her voice carrying through the vault, I will protect my child. File the protection order tonight. Derek will never come near Maya again. The notary's pen scratched across the paperwork, sealing the vow in ink. Second, Nia continued, turning to Roland, I will not hoard this money. Grandma wanted healing. We'll set up a foundation. Food banks, scholarships, land reclamation if possible. This fortune must feed, not rot. Roland's eyes gleamed, pride flickering like light on glass. Your grandmother chose well. Third, Nia touched the journal, its cracked leather cool under her fingertips. I will not let this truth be buried, but I will not let it destroy us either. We'll digitize it, protect it, share it where it can bring justice. Not gossip, not scandal. Justice. Auntie Ifeoma smiled, tears brimming. That's the heart of your bloodline speaking, child? The FID agent nodded briskly. We'll assign a security detail. If others come for the journal, they'll find the law waiting. Maya tugged at her sleeve, looking up with wide, tired eyes. Mama, does this mean we're free now? Nia knelt, cupping her daughter's face. Yes, baby. Free from hunger, free from fear, free to dream. She kissed her forehead, sealing the promise with love. Behind them, Derek's muffled shouting echoed faintly from the corridor. Even in chains, his voice strained for control. You'll regret this, Nia. You can't live without me. She stood tall, facing the door, her voice ringing like a bell that scattered every shadow. You were wrong, Derek. I lived in spite of you, and now I'll live without you. The vault door shut again, sealing him and his poisoned words outside. And hours later, the storm broke. Rain eased into a gentle drizzle, the city lights glimmering through wet streets. Nia stepped out of the bank flanked by Auntie Ifeoma, Roland, and the agents. Maya skipped at her side, humming softly, full for the first time in months. In her tote, the journal rested beside the little carved figurine, its chipped head glowing faintly in the streetlight. Her grandmother's voice seemed to hum through it still. A girl with her own spoon eats where she chooses. And tonight, for the first time, Nia realized she had not just a spoon, but a table of her own. She turned to the camera of the world, the future, the audience waiting for her story. I was unaware of my $150 fortune, she whispered, voice steady and proud. But no longer. My husband starved me and my child for 6 months, and still we survived. Now, we will thrive. She lifted Maya into her arms, the child's laughter breaking like dawn. Together they stepped into the night, no longer shadows of survival, but bearers of a legacy reborn. The storm had passed. The inheritance was hers, and with it, the power to feed, to free, and to forgive.